All right, good morning. We're going to be delayed for a little bit, so we'll be back at 9:15. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry it took us a little bit longer, but we were trying to go through all the items that we were discussing from last night. First, there are a couple of provisos that I would like to add, and this would be in regards to fiscal year 23 and 24, and this is with the Kansas Insurance Department, and that would be to not making any changes in regards to the essential health benefits. And obviously there has been some changes that have been made that actually has increased the health insurance premiums, which is costing the citizens of the state more. And so this is the proviso that we would like to have added into the budget. The other actually came up this morning, and obviously this is a bill that was on the consent calendar in both the House and the Senate. However, it's not moving forward. And I've been told that it may move forward in a conference committee report, but that would be in regards to House Bill 2191 or Senate Bill 195, which is the authorization of a 501c3 to be created by the Children's Cabinet in regards to the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. The proviso would state that if that bill passes, then obviously this would be negated out of the budget, but we want to go ahead and have the authorization for them to create a 501c3 so we can fully implement a statewide program with the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. So those are the two provisos that we're providing this morning. We'll go ahead and turn to round 7 as far as the House offer.
For go, like go ahead.
Hopefully.
Package.
Yes, exactly. We don't want to put it in red. Okay, so in package 1, we have the House position in regards to the federal money that's going to be coming into the state of Kansas having legislative oversight. So that is adding the House language that we supplied. Actually, it was language that was provided to us by the Division of Budget and streamlining and how we would address those funds. If you would accept that language, we would accept your language in regards to the state agencies, in regards to the performance-based budgeting that you had. I believe it was a floor amendment on the Senate. We are going to take the House position, which is not to delete the funding in regards to the 3 1/4 lapse of SGF appropriations, which was a floor amendment on the Senate. And then we'd like to add back in the language in regards to transparency, in regards to any grants from the state or federal level to let everybody know exactly who received those funds and how they were distributed. Package number 2 is the corrections package. So we have a House modified in regards to the $9.9 million for the raising of the Lansing Correctional Facility. We're partially taking your position for this to be capital improvements. However, we have reduced that to only $4 million. We contend with the House position in regards to the $9.6 million, moving the adult correction officers to the Kansas Police and Firefighter Retirement Plan. As I mentioned before, this would take legislative action to move them into this, and that has not moved through the legislative process. So we delete the funding of $9.6 million, and then we add $1.4 million to create Pathways to Purpose pilot program for 2024. And that would also go into 2025 and 2026 because that is the time frame for the pilot program. Package number 3, item number 1, we have changed our language in regards to the $6.5 million for the state printing plant. We'll try to identify ARPA funds, and if not, that would be funded by State General Fund. We delete the funding for the state workforce study. We took your position in regards to the $500,000 for the budget fee fund. We also took your position in regards to adding $113,000 in one FTE position for a new budget analyst. We have adding the funding from EDIF for the Sunflower Summer Program. We also have our position that we made last was the House modified of $1.5 million for the Returning Kansans Home Marketing Campaign. We keep our position in regards to the $1.2 million for the International Division. And then we also have the $500,000 for the Kansas Creative Arts Industries Commission. We deleted the funding, which I believe we talked about in our previous package and also in yours, to delete $150,000 for the Murals and Public Arts Initiative. We add our funding for both fiscal years 24 and 25, $138,000 for the Administrative Hearings Fund. And then obviously in fiscal year 2025, we have the continuation of the Sunflower Summer Program. So if you look at the balance of what we have in EDIF according to the House position, we still have about, if you put back in the marketing campaign, we have about $600,000 that is unspent in the EDIF. Package number 4, we kind of talked about this last night in regards to the funds from ARPA that is going to be utilized for these particular items. I would also preface, as I did last night, that these funds have been identified with the Department of Administration for $50 million that was in the budget bill last year for the business closure rebates. That is the fund that we are utilizing. The reason why we're utilizing that fund is because since we put those monies in the budget bill last year, only $10,500 has been expended of $50 million. So we are taking this fund and funding these items, so there is no need to have, if not use, SGF, because these dollars from ARPA have not been utilized by the business closure rebates, which was well intended, just not utilized. And actually, the Department of Administration has been very active in trying to get businesses to utilize this fund. It's just the businesses haven't used it. As I said, it was well intended, but we have $49.9 million sitting out there, and they have until April 15th to utilize those funds. And the idea is that the process is so cumbersome that they're not going to utilize it. So let's go ahead and pull those funds back and fund these items with the ARPA dollars that we use for the business closure rebates. So we would actually strike the language that says, if not, use SGF. We still have a balance of, we have not utilized all the funds in that particular fund. So there is approximately, I believe, 1.2 million still left. So if somebody would happen to have a claim, the money is available until April 15th.
I think she was asking if it was all the language that we had put to use the ARPA, changing that. That's what she was asking.
I have a question. I thought you answered it.
We're going to use that fund, and so we'll strike the language that says if it's not available, then SGF, because those funds are available. The only condition is going to be we are not accepting adding the $3.4 million for the KBI surge, because there is not enough money in that fund to pay for the surge program or initiative with KBI.
Just a
Yes.
clarification. Okay, so referring to package 4, you are striking the if available, if not use SGF. Are you retaining the if allowable?
No. It's using the ARPA funds, and if for whatever reason the ARPA funds are not available, then it's not funded.
not available, allowable is the concern.
With the ARPA funds, there is, how do I want to say this? Great clairvoyance in regards to how the ARPA funds can be used. And if you look at what other states have used the ARPA funds, it would be questionable, but it has been allowed by the federal government.
Okay.
So allowable is an interesting phrase to say in regards to the ARPA funds.
Fair. And then on page 4, top line KBI, you are saying strike the add 3.4 million, or are you just simply saying that you would not use ARPA funds, instead you would use SGF?
We're just striking the 3.4 million.
Okay.
All of the items that are included in this have either been deemed by what we have defined with the ARPA money as being allowable. So it's been either in the process of what was items in the budget or with the advisory panels. And so it would be allowable by our definition of it.
Okay. I was just waiting for an answer from a particular entity on a very specific use. I do appreciate the explainer on the location of the funds. We had located those obviously as well and had a different purpose for them. So we'll reimagine that one. Thank you.
All right, package number 5. We keep the House position on adding the $6 million for the foster care therapeutic program. We take the Senate position in regards to the $2 million for the evidence-based juvenile services. We take the Senate modified in adding the $2 million to increase both the air and ground ambulance rates to 100%. We keep the House position in regards to the total of $61.6 million, $24.6 million SGF for the nursing facilities. We keep the House position in regards to $34.4 million, including $14 million SGF to rebase the daily Medicaid rate. We have the House position because all those are kind of tied together in regards to this particular item for $13 million, including $5.2 million SGF for a 10% increase. We do take the Senate position in regards to the $6 million SGF to increase allocations for the substance abuse disorder services. Take the Senate position in regards to $2.5 million from ARPA funds for PACE. Senate position in regards to $1 million to analyze the Kansas Assessment Management Information System. We do not add the language in regards to the reimbursement of providers for opioid use. That was taken care of with the mirror item in 2024, and that would also be in subsequent years for 2024, 2025, and I think it's 2026. So that would we would take the Senate position and not adding the language. We would take the House position in regards to the $5 million in regards to healthcare providers, law enforcement agencies, and counties dealing with mental health issues in our local hospitals, namely our critical access hospitals. We take the House position in adding the language requiring the agency to submit to CMS an initial application for community support waiver for individuals with IDD. House position on the holistic look at the nursing care facility reimbursement rate system. I think that's something we need to look at as far as the rebasing for our nursing care facilities. We kind of took, I guess it was a House modified here, but we kind of agreed on adding the funding for Leonard State Hospital, but not the FTEs. And then we accept your position that you had in your offer last night in regarding to the $2.5 million for the software replacement. So that is the packages that we currently have. So items on the green sheets that have yet to be determined. And I'm just going to talk about this, not going through the green sheets, but I'm just going to talk about it ad hoc, I guess is the best way to put it. So in regards to the, let's go with the state banking commissioner. So you have your position that you're going to raise the rate for the individuals that serve on the board with the state banking commissioner. As we have mentioned before, in the special committee for state employee and compensation, we have a bill out there that is going to equalize the payment for all boards and commissions. And the reason why we want to do that is we want to have consistency with all the boards and commissions, and we do not feel that we need to increase the state banking commissioner's board pay if we're trying to equalize everybody else's. The other item that I would make is that we actually zeroed out the state banking commissioner's budget and review it omnibus. And so that would be another item that we would probably have included with that to review that at omnibus because we zeroed out their particular budget. The other item that I would mention as far as the LEVTR, that was the House position. We can have some discussions on that, Mr. Chairman, but that would be the House position is that we keep that in, which was the floor amendment that was made on the floor. So I'll just leave it at that. We can have some discussions on how we will move forward with that. In regards to your position, in regards, I believe it was $250 million that was going into the budget stabilization fund, we would retain the House position of having it being $500 million, which was the same as the governor's recommendation in her budget, because we would still like to have the funds available with the $220 million that the governor had for the infrastructure hub, and have that be utilized for our local cities and counties to draw down federal dollars. And we retain the House position in having those funds available for our local cities and counties to submit to the agencies, and then have the agencies then report to the Legislative Budget Committee. We will change our language from approval on the LBC to review. Because there has been some statutory issues in regards to whether or not we can actually approve anything during the interim, but we would review those items. And the reason why we have that is so we have legislative oversight. There's been a lot of consternation in regards to the Spark 2 process, is what I would call it, where there would seem to be little or no legislative oversight. And so with these dollars that the governor had in her budget for $220 million for the infrastructure hub, we want to have legislative oversight. And so the legislative oversight would be the 6 members sitting right here in the LBC and also the additional House member that would be determined by the Speaker. But we would review all of those items in regards to the Build Up Kansas. Is that right? Build Up Kansas or Build Kansas? Build Kansas program for fiscal years 24, 25, 26, and 27. So we retain our position in regards to the $50 million that would be able to be drawn down for federal funds for our cities and counties to have whatever project in regards to transportation, water, broadband, safety. There's an array of reasons that they can draw down those federal dollars. And so that is the reason why we have our $500 million towards the budget stabilization fund, but we retain our position in regards to the infrastructure hub or the Build Kansas program. Obviously, the $50 million will be drawn down by our cities and counties, but the $5 million in 25, 26, and 27 would be the administrative and the contractor costs. As we mentioned before, in fiscal year 2024, they have already received $3 million for the administration and consultant fees. And they have indicated to me that that would be more than enough. If it would not be enough, we also have the backstop that it goes to the State Finance Council, and the State Finance Council can then administer more funds if needed. me see. Oh, one other thing I would just kind of say, I know we accepted your package in regards to the post-secondary education last night. However, I would just preface and I would just reiterate my comments that I made last night in regards to Smith Hall at the University of Kansas. I really, like I said last night, being an alumnus of KU, I know that particular building very, very well. There is a historic stained glass window with that particular building. I would just pressure the Senate to maybe rethink the demolition of that particular building on the campus of the University of Kansas. And I'll just make that comment right now. There's no reason to demolish that building. I think there are outside reasons as to why they want to have it demolished. The building is sound. It's not defunct. And I think there are outside reasons as to why there's a push to have that building demolished. And thinking about it last night on my way back to Lawrence, I just wanted to reiterate that comment. I wish you would reconsider the demolition of Smith Hall. Oh, and then we also do have, it would still be the House position in regards to the straight treasurer for the $2 million to the Alternatives to Abortion program. I think we have everything covered. That is page 8, State Treasurer, item number 1. Okay. If not, we can.
Senator Petty, you'd like to ask a question?
Yes.
You didn't mention, and I'm curious, are the telepharmacy outlets, are they still in this mix of things? Because I never really got information about, clear information.
I
about
believe
what those
last
are.
night when we had that proviso introduced, you did not accept it. So it's not
Okay,
in this mix. No.
Thank you.
We did not say we weren't going to take it. We said we was going to get more information. So
You can come back in your offer and then
it's
accept
still
it.
in play.
Yeah.
We just haven't decided.
Well,
to
anything is in
accept it.
play until we actually
Right.
finalize on it.
But
You've had enough.
Senator Petty.
I know you provided us information about the $220 million, and I do applaud the House on their position. However, I am curious as to whether putting that into those $55 million blocks is really going to be the best way to help our local units of government, particularly smaller communities, be able to access, because as we know, those are it's not like it's a one, as you just reflected, these are in a lot of different areas. Those grants are coming down from the federal government on almost a daily basis. So I know that you probably want to have the best use for our local communities for those funds. So just if you could expound on that.
No, I can. And that's why in the House position in regards to having the $220 million spread out, well, actually not even 220, it's like $215 million spread out over 4 years. If in the event that we have cities and counties that have been approved by agencies that exceed the $50 million, it goes to the State Finance Council. And the State Finance Council can make the decision of whether or not to expend more dollars to adhere to the applications that have been received by the cities and counties. Now, the one thing that I will preface is even though they may be approved by the agencies on moving forward, And if that would exceed the $50 million, and the State Finance Council then would grant additional dollars for the federal match. The decision actually is from the federal government. So it is dependent on the federal government whether or not those projects are approved. And so if they were able to draw down the federal match dollars, it's up to the federal government deciding on whether or not they are approved for those items, and then it would come back to the State Finance Council. If it exceeds that $50 million, that's an annual allocation. As I mentioned before, the reason why we did that is to not have the entire block of $200 million of available matching grant in one time. We spread it out over 4 years with the condition of having legislative oversight. So the LBC would be able to review, and I'm hoping the revisor is listening when I say that, review in the LBC all of the applications the agencies and the departments have deemed will have a high probability of being approved by the federal government. There is no guarantee they'll be approved by the federal government, but we will review those items. If they are approved and we exceed the $50 million, then we have the condition of the State Finance Council acting and having the amount approved so we can have those projects completed. So you're looking at a total right now, the state of Kansas is possibly going to receive from the bipartisan infrastructure law $3.8 billion. And that could be more. And so we want to make sure that, I guess in a way, even though I kind of hate to say this, but the Kansas is getting its fair share in drawing down as many federal dollars as we possibly can so it would go to other states. I mean, I could go on about the spending on the federal level, but I'm not going to do that right now. But we want to make sure that our local cities and counties can utilize those funds, and the state of Kansas can draw down as much as we possibly can. So that's why we did not limit it to just the $50 million annually. We also have the approval of the State Finance Council as a backstop to say if we exceed the $50 million, then the State Finance Council can approve and move forward, and those cities and counties can move on with the projects.
Senator Petty.
You did so well. But just as a follow-up, and I totally agree, because I want to see us be able to draw down those as many federal dollars as possible, because this is a one-time opportunity. We're not going to see this again, and the possibility of being able to leverage that 220 or 215 for it to be over $3 billion for the state of Kansas for this variety of infrastructure issues is so important. And whereas I'm from a larger community that has more local resources to help with that. You're from a smaller one that would be dependent much more on the ability of our state departments to help out with that. And I think that's why that $5 million is there to help with that. But what I wanted to make sure is that you were saying how, of course, these projects have to be approved by the feds once they're submitted. So when you're talking about that $50 million and that's not necessarily limited to a year specific, that it could be more than that, are you saying that if there were $70 million worth of projects that were being submitted in 25, and would those go to the feds first and then come back and have to be approved by the LCC, or would they have to be approved by the LCC? Because I am interested in not seeing anything that's going to delay our possibilities of drawing down those federal funds.
The intent is that the LBC would review. And so if an agency or department deems a project that would be sufficient to federal guidelines and would most likely be approved by the federal government in regards to those different criteria that I mentioned before, with transportation, water, energy, broadband, we would review them on the LBC. The intent is when it goes to the federal government, and if it's approved by the federal government, and we exceed the $50 million, then the State Finance Council can authorize the additional dollars if above the $50 million, if it's approved by the federal government. Yes.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, and appreciate the explanations, and we will,
There's one other item that I think I need to mention in regards to Department of Health and Environment. On page 9, items 2 and 3, we still retain the House position. So I just thank you, Vice Chairman, for pointing that out. I will be quite honest, since we're going through the packages, I've kind of thrown my green sheets away. Oh, you did? On item 2, they agreed.
They don't have that either.
what number you said?
It's page 9 under KDHE Health, items number 2 and 3.
So, yeah, go back.
So you're staying with the House, okay?
Yes, we're staying with the House. And I think that covers everything as far as our offer this time.
It's a very attractive offer. The green sheet helped.
Senator Clays likes the green color of the paper.
I'm
so
glad Senator Clays likes the green sheet.
Maybe we can use green for the next one too. Blue.
Yeah.
Blue and done, okay.
KU colors?
Thank you. I think we were going on the floor 10 o'clock.
Yeah,
You-
same with
on
us.
10, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't even know. We were caucusing, and I don't know what we have. Or, so
We were having calendar at 9:30, and
That's what
I
we
was just
did.
asking the Vice Chairman what we were talking about.
Okay. So why don't we just go back in, and I'll kind of see what we have in the Senate, and I can send you a text, and we'll announce it on both floors.
That sounds fine with me.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.